Okay, so it was recording, and it kept recording, not recording. It kept going, kept installing, and then it took about 15 minutes since I paused the recording. So click next. It says, "Hey, I want to configure." There's really nothing to do here. You leave it to development computer TCP/IP. I clicked don't open Windows firewall. We're going to use localhost everywhere, so we don't need to have open firewall ports. Um, there's really no good reason to do it, so leave it off. As you can see, the port for MySQL is 3306. That's normal. Let's leave it. Use strong password, doesn't matter. Click next. So root password. Um, Remember, this is important. If you're not going to ever connect this, you can just leave it as whatever. I left mine as root, ROOT. What's important here is what I want to do is add a user, and I want to add a user. I'm going to leave the role of database admin. All hosts, this is important. Fortunately, we don't care. I'm going to use the password as user. Password strength is weak, but I'm okay with that. And then click next. This is the user we're going to use throughout the course. So we created. Notice host. I'm going to go add another user. I just want to show you something. You can specify local host. You can specify any host. You can specify a specific host. We don't care about that. We don't want to care about that. So we're only ever going to use localhost, but this parenthesis sign, all host, lets us use localhost or anything. So I just did that. Also, one other thing is with the role of DB admin, you can perform anything with the user. So there's nothing that I wouldn't be able to do to any database that's installed here. Click next. You want to start the SQL Server, configure it as a Windows service, run the service, blah, blah, blah. Nothing special here. And then, of course, you get to execute. So, of course, we execute it. This is going to go pretty quick. Initializing database takes a second. Starting a server takes a second. But relative to the installation process, this all goes very, very, very rapidly. Then we get to configuration. Do we want to start the workbench or do we want to start the shell? We want to start the workbench, not the shell. For now, we're going to use workbench to create databases and the things we're going to do with the database. So let's go ahead and click, what's called it, starts workbench. Yay. If you look here, you see MySQL connections. This should be the server that is running locally. Click on it and we can create a connection to it. Yay. Ta-da. Now, we can do lots of things here. Don't. Remember, all I really want to do is create a database. Why? Because if I do anything else, I can get really complicated really quickly. So let's create a new schema. I'm going to create the root schema. Click apply. It's going to use default locks and default, what you call it, blah, blah, blah. And you can see that's the actual code. Create schema Ruth. We'll click apply, finish. That's going to execute the statements. Okay, so now we want to actually connect to the database. So we got to go. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. Manage connections. So this is the connection we're connected to. We want to change the default to whatever we just set it to. And you can test the connection, see it was local. And now, we can execute commands. Right, and these are the commands that are on it. If I show databases, it should show me a root. Later on for you guys, I'm going to go ahead and create. Yes, I created a schema, but the database is the actual, the database in use is actually the schema. So I can create a schema from here. I can type create schema and that would work. That's created a database as well. So when you guys come along, you're just going to go click here and then you create it and then you can connect to it. And as user or as Ruth, I can do whatever I want. Yay. So then we don't really need this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and close it. Now, What's going to be weird is, and it's going to be weird, I apologize, but you should know that now that you've installed this as a service, it's just going to be running in the background. You can start and stop it if you choose to, if you're a Windows user, however you do that, you're welcome to do that. But for the most part, you're not controlling it via NetBeans, so you don't have to worry about it. So we're going to use the SQL test. Those source packages. Oh, already have the dependency here. I'm going to remove. Try to remember how to remove the dependency because we're going to need to remove it. Let's get rid of it, POM. Oops, I don't want to do that. I just want to do this. So I'm just going to delete it out of POM and I'm going to click save. And as you can see, it depends. What's actually funny about Maven is that all you're really doing when you add a dependency here is you're actually setting it in a UML document and then it manages it separately. So .com JDBC. Oh, I remember what I did. I did this instead. I just typed MySQL. This is it, MySQL connector, and then click 8017. It really doesn't matter. Click add, and that's the thing you need to add. Now here's the test. I actually just copied the code from the setup database, and so I put it in here. Now, as I remember, I was telling you the JDBC URL is going to be different depending on what type of database you connect to. Here's the version for MySQL, JDBC, MySQL, :// localhost 3306. You're just going to copy mine. This last piece is Ruth, and the username is user and user. And it's going to drop the table if it exists and create it if it doesn't. I have some good news and some bad news. This is not originally the same code. And you go, wait, what? It's not originally the same code. If you remember, I just did this. Okay. Watch what happens when I try to run this. Oops, of course, now it's bitching because of that. Okay. Boom. Watch what happens when I try to run this. The table doesn't exist because I literally just created it, right? So the table doesn't exist. So table exists, drop it like it's hot. Unknown table, root student. So the code stops there. It stops there. It never gets down here. So what we want to do is we want to put it in its, I don't know what you call it. I got a bad feeling about this from Derby. Derby was not presented an error here, and it should have. This is the way it should look, and you're literally just going to copy your, when you create your own table, you're just going to copy my code. What happens here is, and you'll see when it runs, it goes ahead and table exists, drop it like it's hot. Table didn't exist. Student table created, database complete, right? So it created the table in this case. So why did it say drop it like it's hot? Because oh, I shouldn't do this. I should say something like this. Just if table exists, drop it like it's hot. Table dropped. Table didn't exist. Boom. All right, that's the difference. Now I'm going to run it again, and you'll see the difference here. Pretty simple. If the table exists, it drops it. If it doesn't, it says it didn't exist, and so forth. This is how it's going to properly work. Separate the setup from the DB fixed or DB. I'm going to run this a couple times. I'm going to run the setup and the DB. This is what we were doing in class. I just did the insert code. And remember, it was failing, blah, blah, blah. Well, now it works. But here's the dilemma. I'm going to work through this code, and I promise I'll stop when I'm finished with this code. It says integrity constraint violation. So you got a duplicate entry. I told you it's very, very likely you're going to duplicate entry. The bad news is the second I get a duplicate entry, it stops. Now I can start up my, and I probably should have left it open. MySQL Workbench. If I left it open, by the way, I'll show you what I can do in a minute. But what's happening is it's inserting a bunch of things, but once it gets to one where there's a duplicate, it throws an exception and then just can't do anything else, right? So what can we do? Pretty simple. We can actually just put a query, put some. So now I'm going to select count from student. Oop. And then I'm going to execute the query. And you can see the count is 381. So it actually did 30 count. When the asterisk counts the number of things. So it created 381 of them, but that's not 1,000, right? If we're really interested in creating 1,000, this ain't gonna do it. Okay. So I created another version of it called DB fixed that works better. What it does is it actually throws the try catch, throws the create in a try catch. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete it and refresh my database. So it's actually going to delete the table and all of its contents when it does that. And so now I'm going to run DB fixed. And you'll note that it'll run to completion. Now it's actually going to continue running. If one fails, it's fine. And you can actually see it being printed out. Okay. And it runs to completion. Yay. Right. So at least we don't have any exceptions, but we have the same issue. Watch this. I'm going to run it again. Yeah, I'm aware one return. There we go. So it only had 993. That means there were 7 duplicates. We still don't have 1,000 rows. What can we actually do that's better than that? Pretty simple. Instead of doing the for loop, we're going to have a while loop and we're going to count the number of correct entries. So now we're going to do it and we're going to have that try catch thing again, except we're going to count when we encounter a duplicate, we're going to not reduce the count. If we don't encounter a duplicate, we're going to have the count. So once again, we'll delete the setup. And we'll do the fixed better. Obviously, I will make sure all code is available to you today. Here we go. Now, when I execute my count, I actually have 1,000. That's just something to keep in mind. One of the things about MySQL is it's not actually that much harder to use, but it's going to do some things that we're like, wait a second, what? So watch this. I'm going to change the password to Rick. I'm going to run it. It says access denied for user at localhost using password. The password has to be correct, right? We ran it. We did issues before with the other one where it didn't. That's why I was saying I had a bad feeling about it because it didn't care whether or not we had the right database or not. The bad news with MySQL is it's going to run in the background. So now we have a database server running on our system at all times, which is fine for me. I don't really care. But it was something I was trying to avoid. When we use Derby, we only run it when we need to run it. Okay, so we're going to stop here. And all the things that we would do for our regular class, we'll do next class. There will be a time. We'll talk about that in class. If you look at the syllabus, I kind of mentioned this, but what we're going to do is we're going to catch up. And you go, wait, what? We're going to catch up. So modern web development, introduction to Spring and REST, introduction to Spring development. We're going to catch up. We're going to go through this area a little faster. And that's just going to give us that extra day. We'll probably won't get the extra day until right around 10:10, but we'll be caught up by 10:10 is my guess. Yeah. All right. Anyway, have a great day. Make sure you install MySQL. It's relatively easy. Go ahead and install it and let me know if you have any problems. Thank you.